All right, paragraph 6C1 of the 1-to-4 family contract. So we're talking about the survey. In another video, I talked about paragraph 2 and 3, but let's talk about paragraph C1 for the survey. This is if we're going to use an existing survey that's provided by the seller, right? So the seller has a certain number of days to get that survey and the T47 to the buyer. This should already be obtained. If you're the listing agent, you should already have the survey and you should already have the T47 completed before this goes to market. I will tell my seller, I need the survey and the T47 completed before we go to market. That lets them know it's that important. Okay. So if we're going to receive one and we already have it, when I'm writing the contract, I'm just going to put 1 day there because I already have that survey. If I don't have it yet, I might give them 3 or 4 days to get that to me. So within negotiated number of days after the effective date of this contract, the seller shall means they must, they have to, shall furnish to buyer and title company. So they have to give these things to both the buyer and the title company. 2 people need to get this. Could be same email sent to both. Title company, seller's existing survey of the property and a residential real property affidavit or declaration. So let's look at the affidavit and declaration. This is the T47 residential affidavit. This is the T47 real property declaration in lieu of affidavit. Either one of these are acceptable. The difference is on the affidavit down here at the bottom. This is going to be witnessed. Their signature is going to be witnessed by a notary, right? Typically, they can fill this out, go to their bank, and have the bank person witness their signature. If they don't want to go to the bank and acknowledge the information on this T47, then they can do the declaration. On the declaration, there's additional information. They're going to need to put their name, their date of birth, and their current address on this form, and then they're going to execute and sign it themselves. Okay? This is similar to the affidavit, but we're not having a notary sign it, and their date of birth and address is going to have to go on this form, where it's not required on this form, just their signature witnessed. Okay? That's the difference between the two. The information in it is the same. What the seller is going to do is they're going to put their name, where they live, the description of the property, which would be the address, potentially the listing description, the county where the property is located, and the date of the survey. Remember, the date of the survey has to have a seal, is going to be field work completed. So the date of the survey is going to be somewhere down here. That's the date that I would use, okay, which is the right here, 26th day of November. That's the date of the survey. That is what's going to go right here. People make a mistake and put today's date on the date of the survey. That's not the case. It's when the survey was done, okay? In this case, the notary in the state of Texas, should be state of Texas, right? They're stating that they're the owner, they're familiar, they're closing a transaction, and to the best of their knowledge, there have been no changes to the survey, meaning the footprint hasn't changed. There's no additions, there's no swimming pool added, there's no carport added. Nothing has changed to the footprint of this property. Nothing has changed to the fence line of this property. Nothing has changed to the boundary lines of this property. That's what they're stating. If something has changed, that's where this comes in, except for the following. And in this case, if they added a deck on the back, then what they would say is, let's say they added this wood deck all the way over here, then they would draw that in on the survey, initial it, and on the affidavit, except for an extension of the deck to the far right corner of the house as indicated on the attached survey. Right? And then they would sign this in front of the notary, or they would do the same thing on the declaration, except extended the wood deck on the back of the house to the corner of the back right corner of the house, as indicated on the attached survey. So when they drew it in here, now this would go along with the T47 affidavit or the declaration given to the title company and the buyer. Okay. As according to the contract, it would be given to both of them, and then they would determine if that's acceptable or not. Okay. Now, remember, the title company and the buyer's lender have to accept it. So if we give that to them, they would accept it. They either have to accept it or not. If they don't accept it, then we have to indicate who's going to pay for the new survey if it's not accepted. Is it going to be the seller or the buyer? Again, if I'm representing the buyer, I'm going to say, well, if it's not accepted, then the seller has to pay for it. If I'm representing the seller, I'm going to say, we're going to provide it, but if they don't accept it, then the buyer is going to have to pay for it. Again, that's negotiable. Okay. One other point we need to make out in paragraph C1, okay, is this number of days after the executed date of the contract, seller shall furnish to buyer and title company seller's existing survey and a residential real property affidavit or declaration. That's the ones we just went through, T47 debit or declaration. If the seller does not get both of those to them, and here's what happens. Sometimes the listing agent will get them a copy of the survey to everybody, but they don't get a copy of the T47. The paragraph specifically states and, meaning both have to be given. Because if both aren't given, then we have to look at this next paragraph here. Buyer shall obtain a new survey at seller's expense no later than 3 days prior to closing if seller fails to furnish within the time prescribed, both the existing survey and the affidavit or declaration. And this is a mistake listing agents make. They give the survey, but they don't give the T47. If you don't give the T47, the buyer has the right to order a new survey at the seller's expense. Make sure you deliver both of those within this time. Okay. Many times listing agents will say, well, we'll just get the affidavit signed at closing. If you deliver the affidavit, right? If you deliver this one, the affidavit, without a notary signature, you have not delivered that notice according to the contract because the affidavit has to be signed by a notary. Okay. So again, when you're the listing agent, get the T47 and the survey together and have the survey get it notarized or get the declaration done before you go to market so you can avoid that. All right. Man, we're moving right along. If you have questions about this or if you have doubts, come see your broker, come see me, and we'll be sure and get that taken care of.